Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. Women finding love and marriage in their 40s or 50s. Actress Yvette Nicole Brown says she has. And she talks about it in a recent Essence magazine article. And tonight, we're going to take a deep dive into the issue of women and their after 40 relationship goals. My guests are dating expert Monique Kelly and comedian and actress Nikki Moore. Now, ladies, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Now, before we get into this, I want both of you to listen to comments Yvette Nicole Brown made during an interview on Getting Grilled with Curtis Stone. Those comments made while she was sitting with her fiance, Anthony Davis.
To be my age, to have been single as long as I was single, and to have waited to, I didn't just grab a guy. I waited until I found the guy that my heart loves. Mm-hmm. That's a testimony, and it's also aspirational and inspirational to women that are in my position. And I would love for a 40-something or 50-something woman to see this story and go, okay, it's right for me to wait for the right one, or to not just marry whoever asks me first if I don't feel it. And it is still possible. Like, I want people to still feel this possible. So now I'm trying to thread the needle about how much do I share to encourage people without giving away what is special and, important to me. So It's like trying to thread that needle. But I know for the right person, I'll bring them out, put them on a sofa, and let's talk. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. As my mother would say, all up in love, L-U-B. Love, it is a wonderful thing. But, one of the things that she mentioned in the Essence magazine article, she talked about not settling. And, Monique, how would you define settling?
I love this question because people have to understand when we talk about not settling, it's talking about your non-negotiables, okay? There's a difference between a long delusional laundry list, build-a-man list versus your non-negotiables. So when she has found love the way that she has described it, she has stayed true to her non-negotiables, which is also her way of saying not settling. So not settling are things that are important to you. For a lot of Black women in particular who want to be with Black men, that is their preference, that is who they are attracted to, they want to wait for that. That is okay. A lot of people want to force Black women to date outside of their race. If that's not someone or something that they are attracted to, don't force it. Also, maybe for some people, there's religious aspects that are important to them. Those will be a non-negotiable, and not settling just to marry someone so you can say you're married. That would be an example.
What do you say, Nikki, about not settling? How would you?
I'll never settle because I am so specific about what I want. And I'm not so particular, like specific. Like, I don't have a list. I'm not a list girl. I know it when I see it. Yep. So I won't settle because I wouldn't be happy. Simply because I would not be happy. And, I'm a basic chick. And Harold, I'm kind of a broad sometimes. But I'm working on being a lady these days. Because in my 50s, I like being a lady.
Okay.
So settling is,
I would never call you basic. Okay.
No, there ain't nothing basic about you. And
perhaps not basic, but I am definitely a broad.
Okay.
And that part is the part that keeps me on my toes and keeps me being hopeful that settling is never going to be a factor for me. I don't have to settle.
She spoke about waiting and finding someone at the age of 52, but I think the reality is that we're not talking about someone who is, how can I put this? She is not your average person. She is a celebrity. She
Yeah.
is an actress. And for people in that space, and even for women who are not necessarily high profile, but who are career oriented and really focused on that, is it possible that they allow those goals, those career goals, to interfere or at least be an impediment? Or maybe those things put those relationship marriage goals on hold.
Well, I'm going to say no, because I think that my person is not intimidated by the things that I do. In fact, he compliments them. So I think that if they are an impediment, then that's not him.
And
Okay.
let's talk about outside of the celebrity world, because a lot of my followers, even personal friends, are getting either remarried or married post 45 in their 50s. This has been a growing trend. So first of all, what we have to be very clear on is just because a woman says or is getting married for the first time or remarried again in their late 40s or 50s or beyond, people assume that they have not dated. Okay, just because you don't put your relationship out on social media, trust and believe they've been in relationships, they've dated, they've gone through the ups and downs of dating. Some have been in long-term relationships. So just because they're not putting their previous relationships on blast, I always say private until permanent. And even then you might not know my personal dating business, okay? Or who I'm with. So the assumption that a woman of a particular age is single because she's only focused on her career, or she doesn't go out on dates, or she hasn't been in relationships, we got to debunk that myth, because that's just not the case.
One of the things that you said, Nikki, you were talking about a guy, for example, being intimidated, but is it intimidation? And obviously I'm a man, I'm speaking from a man's perspective. You said he can't be intimidated by your profession, but is it so much intimidation? Relationships require work. They require, in my opinion, they require working together. They require time. For some people, it's not quantity, but quality.
Okay.
But do you think some of those things may be, an impediment?
What things?
Not having the time. I mean, when you are.
I think, yeah, it could be. For me, it's distance. Like, a person could be geographically undesirable for me, but time, we make time for what we want, and that's always been the case. But as the intimidation is concerned, I think it's more a person not being secure in who they are. It usually doesn't present as an issue in the beginning. However, once they get into it, and I've not always been in entertainment. I've been a professional executive and all of those things, and I've always made good money. So there have been situations where I was married. My husband, I made probably 3 times what he made, and he enjoyed it. But there were like those give and take moments where, like, you're not the boss of me kind of thing, right? Yeah. And it was okay when it's working, when it's good, when it suits you. Like when you drive a car that's worth your whole annual salary plus some, it's okay. But when it is me setting boundaries, then it's me trying to control. It was the duplicitousness in the behavior, and it really speaks to, just because I've matured and I understand relationships different, it speaks to a level of intimidation that people have. Like, both of us can't be the girl. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be the man, then you got to do the man stuff. You want me to be the girl, then let me do the girl stuff. And by girl, put a B on it, okay? That's what
I'm really trying to stay out of trouble in this conversation. I really
I'm
am.
there for trouble, Harold.
Yeah,
But I don't
I
want to
know
get you in trouble. I don't want to get you in trouble.
that is
I don't want to get you in
why I
trouble.
love you. That's why I love you. But so Monique, when we talk again, I'm going to go back to the whole settling thing. And here's another question that's going to get me in trouble, particularly for for those sisters who are in their 40s or 50s. What is the difference between having high standards and setting the bar too high?
It's interesting because this question is rarely asked of men. As women, we're always having to justify the things that we prefer, the things that we're looking for, and we're always put in a position where we have to justify it. Where if you're a woman of a particular age and you're single, for some people, they think that you are unhappy, you are miserable, and that you just can't get a man, not recognizing or realizing that you have probably dated people that you just realized you weren't equally yoked with. But to your point, there are women who do have dating delusion. That is very real. These are women.
What is
dating delusion? I like that.
Yes. Okay. So dating delusion, must be, I've heard this, must wear a suit to work because I want a man who is successful. Okay. That was one of the things that I've heard some women say. Okay. Another example of dating delusion. He must be fit. He must have his body all the way together. And meanwhile, you have not been in a gym since 1972. Okay. And you are not even coming to the table with the things that you're requesting of this man. Must make a lot of money, must be this and that. And you're living paycheck to paycheck. Okay. So that is an example of dating delusion where you are just unrealistic. There are some women out there that thought that before he got married, and for some, even though he is married, all they had to do was find a way to be in the room with Idris Elba and he would magically see them and want them because they just look that good. That is dating delusion. And that is where it becomes an issue. But dating delusion is just not for women in their 40s and 50s. This is a thing that infuriates me. Yeah. Women who are in their 20s have more dating delusion than women in their 40s and 50s because we have lived life. Women in their 30s have more dating delusion, especially now with social media. So stop putting it on just the women who are 40 and 50.
Yeah.
Is it, and this is a question for both of you, but I'll start with Nikki. When you are in your 50s and dating, and this goes back to the issue about settling versus reality. Okay. Settling, not versus dating delusion, but reality. When you're in your 40s and 50s, are there certain things that you should, Nikki, be willing to accept as imperfection that you wouldn't have in your 20s and 30s?
I don't know if I would say you should. Mm-hmm. What I'd say is there are some things that, I accept, and those things have changed since I was in my 20s versus my 30s and 40s and now in my 50s. Like, there are things that, become non-deal breakers, even though they're not necessarily things that you particularly care for. Mm-hmm. So the issue of whether it should change or not change, I think it's a personal issue. It's an individual thing. It has to be up to the person. But as I come into myself as a woman in each decade, those things have evolved.
Hold that point, because I want to hear about that evolution. Because again, women in their 40s and 50s, it is all about evolving. So look, stay with us. We're going to take a break. Don't forget, you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. Stay with us. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM Channel 141. The Original Quiet Storm with John Mons is next on WHUR. I'm Harold Fisher. This conversation continues in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about women and their after 40 relationship goals. My guests are dating expert Monique Kelly and comedian and actress Nikki Moore. Before the break, Nikki, you were talking about coming into your own as a woman and evolution as it relates to your intimate life, your love, your emotionally intimate life. Let me be clear, because I'm trying to stay out of trouble. How have you evolved, and how do you
So,
think? And why do you think that's important for women to do?
well, I think it's important for humans to do.
Yeah.
And I think that it is important because how I've evolved is each time I go into a new situation or leave a situation, it is important for me to take a look at, my part in it, right? Everything begins and ends with me, the way I see life. So every circumstance, even if I feel like the other person was wrong, every circumstance requires me to take an honest assessment of my choices. And when I don't do that, then I probably will pick the same cat because I've done that. Like, I married my psycho husband a couple of times, not the same guy though, So the thing is, unless I take an honest look at me, that's the evolution part. I won't change. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So I had a conversation recently with someone, and the question was, why do you continue to choose the same person? And the answer is, I have to stop picking unless I can examine what I'm picking with. If I'm choosing from a place of brokenness and hurt and dark and then I'm gonna attract that. But if I'm choosing from a place of healthy, whole, open-mindedness, then I'm likely to allow him to choose me.
You were nodding your head, Monique. What were you thinking?
I love everything that you just said, because in every relationship, there's one common denominator, and that is you.
Yeah.
And, your 20s, you're making the mistakes. The 30s, you're learning the lessons. By the time you're in your 40s, if you see patterns that keep reoccurring, you have to take a look at yourself, because a lot of times there's a lot of finger pointing, or I call it armchair diagnosing. Not every man is a narcissist. Okay. That's overused. Not every relationship is toxic, or it is toxic, but it's not because of the other person. So until, to your point, you do that self-reflection, you will continue to do the same things over and over again, which is why I think the majority of women who are late 40s, 50s are getting remarried again, are getting in healthy relationships, because they have done the work on themselves.
Am I overstating it? And I wanted to kind of go back to this to Monique, where, and this is this man's opinion.
Okay.
And maybe because I've had examples in my family with with my parents. I'll just put it very, very plainly. I believe that in order to have, as Yvette Nicole Brown is alluding to, that traditional marriage or in relationship that will lead to marriage, that you got to sit still and do it. You can't be jetting all over the place. And that's not just about her. That's about him. And when I say
what
her,
do you mean jetting all over the place?
In other words, it is difficult to maintain a relationship. And you spoke about, geography, for example, when one or both people are not sitting still long enough to nurture the relationship.
Can you give me an example, if you don't mind?
So yes, here's a prime example. Last year, I interviewed a former CNN headline news anchor, and she was talking about in her early 50s, she decided to quit her very lucrative, wonderful career. and moved back home to Houston and adopt a child in her
Oh,
early, yeah, in her early 50s. But one of the things that was very transparent and a little heartbreaking, to be quite honest, was she said that during the she had done all of this traveling around the world, but she always did it alone because there was no one there for her to do it with. That was one of the things. I'm paraphrasing. I think the other thing that she said at one point, because I asked her during the interview, I said, during your time as a news anchor, not only for CNN headline news, but also eventually with Al Jazeera, but she spent a lot of time in Atlanta. And I said, was there no man there that you were interested in? Was there no one there who fit? And she said, yes, but she did not, she didn't focus on that. And in the end, they left. And I don't know, like Nikki was saying, is it intimidation? I disagree with that. I think it was, again, in this man's opinion, if you want to be married, if you want a relationship, you got to be able to be around to work on it. And be around isn't necessarily just geographically. You got to be around emotionally. You got to be emotionally available.
I agree with the emotional availability, but I think that if you're in a relationship and, for example, somebody travels, that's okay. If you're busy, that's okay. We don't have to be up under each other. Look at Shirley Ralph and her husband. They live in 2 different states and they still married. So I think that it has everything to do with the individuals. Like, you got to be a grown-up. Let's start with that. You have to both be grown-ups. And I'm not a 50-50 chick. We both need to bring 100. Okay. If I need 2 whole people, otherwise, it gets complicated. And that fluctuates. Even the 100, because sometimes I might only have 70, and sometimes you got 90. But if we understand, if we have a firm understanding of one another, it can be successful. But we have to first have an individual position that is healthy and whole.
and also, it's important that you have to make the time to date. For a lot of women, it's a protection, it's a fear, it's an anxiety that they use either their career, or the new thing that a lot of women are using is I'm in my healing era, which is great. Having a career, being in your healing era is good. But my 3 favorite words, you know this, Harold, in addition to, you can do that in addition to meeting people. So first of all, if you want to date and meet someone, you have to make the time to do it. Okay. Yes, we have full lives. We have our girlfriends. But if you meet someone and you see potential and you keep canceling dates with him because you're like, oh, I'm going out with my girls, we're doing this. Your girls got their husband, your girls got their man. So you have to make the time to do it. Now, in terms of traveling, I don't think there's anything wrong with traveling and having a career which involves traveling. If you come into my life, you see what my career is, you know what it is. But it's a matter of making that time. When you are traveling, are you doing FaceTime? Are you, sending him special or sexy little, things in the text messages? Are you inviting him to join you in some of these things? You manage your relationship like you manage your career. And if you have a successful career and if you have a man who is worth it and who you are vibing with and vice versa, you make the time, you both make the time, and you make the commitment like you do with your career, like you do with your healing.
So here's a question, Monique, and I agree with what you were saying. And this may be a generational thing.
Okay.
At what point should a woman stop looking at a man and saying that he has potential? Because my daughter is 25, and she'll meet a guy, and at 25 you can say, well, he has potential, because honestly, so does she.
Absolutely.
Okay? But can you drop potential at 55? Is his rap career has not taken off quite yet at 55, but there is potential. Come on, Monique. Come on. You got to help me with that.
Okay, so we're gonna take the rap career out of it. Okay,
take the rap career out of it.
Talking to us more seasoned folks. Okay, so here's the difference. You're a man who had a very successful career at a Fortune 500 company. You choose to take the leap, or maybe circumstances happen, your contract doesn't get renewed or whatever, and you take a leap to start your own consulting firm from the ground up. Okay, that's great. I don't like to use the word potential, but you're pivoting in your life. Okay, so in your 40s and 50s, it's okay if someone is pivoting. But in terms of potential, a lot of women have started off with a man in their 20s and 30s with potential, and potential can get you potentially forever off the market because you wasted all your time with someone's potential. So, at a certain age, especially at our ages here, someone needs to be where they are trying to go. And you can support each other in that. But in terms of potential and, pursuing all this stuff that is unrealistic, you got to draw the line at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
For some women.
Nikki,
Yes,
your feeling about potential.
At this big age, at this big age, he gotta have it. It can't be potential because we might not make it. You know what I mean? At this big age, I need him to be ready. I can't invest in potential.
And like I said, there's a difference between a pivot and potential. Many people have pivoted in their careers at a later age in life. That's very different than potential, my friend.
Agreed. And some people, a pivot is not he has potential. A pivot is he's adjusting. He's doing that because I'm doing that now. And I have an idea of what life looks like, but the conversation has to address what life is really like.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is if we're both adjusting, then, we talk through it, we work through it, and we understand. We understand where we are, we understand the expectations, but it can't be like he has potential because that's for a 30-year-old or a millennial. I had a millennial one time. I told you about it, Harold. Well, that thing had me up here trying to figure out how to make Captain Crunch from scratch. He had potential, but when I watched him walk down my walk with them skinny jeans on, everything changed. Lord. I was like, no, this will never work.
And the reality is, Nikki, that Captain Crunch will scratch the roof of your mouth, so you really can't. not unless it sits in the milk bowl. Oh my gracious!
I gotta tell you though, I am I'm dating now, and I just came off of a very messy, brutal breakup, and the guy was just awful. And people were like, "Give yourself some time. You just gotta wait, sit back," and I don't feel like I need to go sit in the closet. I like dating. I love love. You know what I mean? So I just jumped right back in. After a few weeks, I just jumped right back in, and now I feel as if choices are important, and individuality. I like being in relationships. I like being a couple. I really want to be with one specific person, my person. I'm dating somebody now who I think might be that person, and I enjoy it. I enjoy every part of it. Like, we have long conversations, we date, we go out. He took me on a date, and this was the date. He planned the whole thing, and I like that. He took me to the Museum of the Bible. Picture that.
Oh yes, yeah, in Washington, D.C.
Wonderful. And then we had dinner, and we went to a book signing after, and it was just a whole wonderful day. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't any of that. It was so thoughtful and deliberate. And he's tall, dark, and handsome. I like him like that. And chocolate, dark chocolate. And I like it. Shout out to Last Cabin.
Right. About that, did you see the Song of Solomon exhibit? I'm sorry, that's
no, I didn't. You been?
No,
We're doing that. But like, and the thing that makes it special is not that.
Right.
It's the intention. It's the specificity of the intention. Like it's planning and talking and understanding and nurturing and not just jumping in blind, like you're jumping into a swimming pool with no numbers. You can either break your neck or drown.
Or drown.
It's like going through life deliberately. And I enjoy that. I enjoy being a couple. I enjoy being involved. I enjoy relating one to another and all of the things associated with that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I feel like when I'm happy and in a relationship that is working for a time, I want to be my best self. So it propels me.
And you said something, there is nothing wrong with that. I feel it's important that we say, I want to be in a relationship. I'm looking to be in a committed relationship. I'm looking to date someone with intention. I'm looking to be with someone who knows how to court me. You put that out there, put that energy out there. A lot of times you feel, or not you particular, but some women feel like they need to sound like they are so independent. They don't need a man. They don't want to be. And the truth of the matter is a majority of us do want that. And we do need that. And I think with men in particular, approach, especially when you're approaching a woman, as you would say at our big age, you need to approach us with intention. You need to date us with intention. You need to court us. You need to do things in a manner that you would with a woman who is, a grown woman. Okay, I don't know if I can say that word because I know we
what I call them.
A grown woman. Okay, because a lot of times some men who are at our big grown age, they decide to date women who are younger because they don't have to put in as much effort. They think it's going to be easier, or they're going to put up with more things that they think a woman of our age won't do. So you can't always put it on the women who are in their 40s and 50s that the issue is on us. A lot of times these grown men are making the choice to date these younger women because they don't have to put in the same amount of work. And it's not about us being difficult. It's about them not having the intentionality to date a woman and court us in the way that we should. So they settle. A lot of times they're settling for something easier, not us.
It's true. They're delusional.
Yes, men do have dating delusion as well.
Until that blood pressure medicine kick in and the thing won't work. And them young girls roll on out on their butts.
Okay. And then they'll talk about how women are gold diggers and they do XYZ. Sweetheart, you knew if you were going to go and date a woman who is 20 years junior,
12 years old.
So you already know what it is. So when they do what it is going to do, what they do, then you want to act all shocked.
Facts. Look, clutch my pearls.
Yeah, so just a little pearl clutching there. So when you are in your 40s or 50s, Monique, how do you believe loving is different?
Oh, I love that. When you are in your 40s and 50s and when you love hard, you love genuinely, you love authentically, because you have either waited a long time to find that love, or you have gone through some love that was so jacked up and healed from it that there is more of an appreciation. You are so happy to have finally connected with the person you're supposed to be with. So that love is agape love. That love is deep. That love is strong. And that love has lived life and has learned from their mistakes, and they hold on to it. It's a beautiful thing at this age. And also, when you're meeting someone at this age, you're dating and meeting for different reasons. You're not necessarily dating because you want to start a family. You're dating and getting in relationships with someone where it is going to be you and that person. You don't have the distraction of raising kids. It is literally you and that person. And you got to really love strong in order to sustain it. And it's a beautiful thing at this age. Oh, it's so good.
I remember a couple of years ago, I got into this muscular debate with a brother who was also in his 50s. And he said, and I disagreed, he said to me that love is not, the feeling is not the same as it was when you were in your 20s. You said you don't get butterflies when you're in your 40s or 50s the way you do, or the way you may have when you were in your 20s, or even if you were a, a teenager. I disagreed with that.
Yeah.
What say you, Nikki? Do you still get butterflies at the big old age, as you say, the big age that you're in?
Yes, I do.
You heard her talking about her tall chocolate. I mean,
Yes,
I felt
I
the
do.
butterflies when she was talking about them. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm so excited for you.
Thank you, girl.
And
What she said.
right, and are they butterflies or are they moths? I mean, let's.
Harold, I am
Look,
taking
he
your
done turned into the
away.
comedian. Oh my God. They
I'm
are
just-
butterflies and bumblebees, baby. They sting and flutter.
Okay, they sting and flutter. I like that. Let us hope that you're not allergic to bee venom.
I'm not. Listen, when they sting, we go together.
Okay.
With a V, not T. Together.
Right.
We
So
go
how do you know if a person, and we in this conversation we are talking about women. Monique, how do you know when a woman is not emotionally available? You said, well, you gave the example of a woman being in her healing stage. If a man is talking to a woman or approaches a woman and she says that, is that a red flag? Does that mean leave me alone? What?
No. When a woman says she's in her healing stage, normally it means I'm in my healing stage. I don't have a lot of time for shenanigans.
Yeah.
If you coming into my life, don't interrupt my peace. When you're in your healing stage, you've gotten to a place in your life where it's peaceful. You walk into your home, it's peaceful. There's not a bunch of drama and arguments. You're not worried about some random chick sliding into your DMs telling you what your man has done and who he's been with and sending screenshots. You are at a space where it's peaceful. So if you choose to come into my life at this stage of my life, at this age where I am and all the work I've done, don't come in here and disrupt my peace. That's what they mean.
What do you say, Nikki?
I see it a little bit different. I think, and I'm basing this on my own experience, like, because I was dating when I was in my healing phase. And I don't know if it was a good idea or a bad idea, but what I do know is there were times when I found myself saying, I don't have anything for anybody other than me. So I can't focus on you. I can't focus on what you need. I can't do any of that. We can spend time, but like, I don't have it for you. I don't. So when I got through that, I became friends with people and maintained friendships, like, with those people. But the thing is, I don't think that if I'm fractured, I'm gonna be a good date anyway. You know what I mean? Like, we can hang out and we can kick it. You know what I mean? Netflix and chill and stuff. We can do that. But don't expect much.
Yeah.
Don't expect much. That's what I'm saying. And that's women, men, anybody, but we're talking about women. Women are more intentional and we are emotional and we are all of that stuff. We're like sponges when it comes to love and emotions and all of that stuff. We take it in. We take it in. Men tend to just let it fall off. And I don't know if it's real or imagined, but many times men, and I've seen this in relationships, men will fight emotion. Things will be going real good and feel good, but they for whatever reason decide that it's just too much. It's just too much, and they push back. And then they come back, and then they push back, and then they come back. It's like being on an emotional roller coaster with people like that who haven't evolved to a place to understand their own emotions and then their wants. Like, my desire is to be happy and in love eternally. That's what I want. That's what I want. So that's what I pursue. And that's what and not settling means that once I realize that someone is emotionally unavailable in that space, then to stay there doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense, because what are we doing?
Monique?
I was listening to what you were saying, because the key is with dating, it's about collecting data, right? And at this point in your life, you're very clear where you are, whether you want to be in a relationship or whether you don't. And as I've always said to women, and Harold, you've heard me say this, if you meet a man and you want a relationship and he said exactly what you said just now, that they don't want anything serious, they just want to kick it, and you choose to move forward in that relationship thinking that he's going to change his mind, you are setting yourself up for failure. But also men, when a woman says that to you, she is very clear, because like you said, women are very intentional and they're very direct with their words. So if she's saying that and you want a relationship, then you need to keep it moving. Because again, if she starts doing the yo-yo with you, that's just as toxic as when a man does the yo-yo with you.
Exactly.
So it goes both ways.
Indeed.
You know, Yvette Nicole Brown, in talking about her, you know, her fiance, one of the things that she mentioned is that they were not strangers. Anthony Davis and Nicole and Yvette Nicole Brown, they were friends. What do you think, Monique, if you've been friends with someone for a really, really long time, it's a really solid thing, and then from a practical standpoint, you realize that you do love them, maybe not in love with them, but want to go ahead and give it a shot. Would you recommend that? Is there a risk in trying to do that?
Again, when you're dating at a particular age, you're dating for very different reasons. So friendship is the foundation for any relationship. But I did see that she had met her now fiance 20 years ago. And this is why I tell women, go to those homecomings, go to those high school reunions, go there, because a lot of people are coming out of long-term marriages, long-term relationships, and then you reconnect with someone where you have that foundation, where you have some familiarity, where you can actually bond over things that you have in common. So that is happening a lot. You're seeing a lot of people not spinning the block. There's a big difference between that, but you're seeing a lot of people connecting with someone who was a friend or someone that they knew back in the day, or someone that they, might have had a relationship, not a toxic relationship. I'm talking about back in college, you guys both got married and you're divorced and you guys are reconnecting with each other. That is a beautiful thing. And that is happening a lot for people of this particular age. So go to the homecomings. I know this is WHUR, although I went to Hampton. Go to that Howard homecoming. It's popping. Go to Hampton homecoming. Homecoming.
HU versus HU.
Oh, Lord.
What is spinning the block? What is that?
Yeah, I was about to ask, what is spinning the block?
So spin the block, Ashanti Nelly. You dated back in the day. The relationship, as we know, she said he cheated, and then now they're back together. She's pregnant. They're back in a relationship. Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck, they spun the block too. Spinning the block can get very tricky if the relationship prior was a toxic relationship, if the relationship prior had cheating. So some people look at these relationships and they're like, oh, maybe I should go back to my ex. I don't necessarily recommend that if it was a toxic relationship. That's very different than your baby love in high school and college.
Right.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point. Nikki, I'll have you finish us off with a final word in your big age wisdom. What do you recommend for women over 40 who think that it may not happen for them?
Oh, child, keep trying. Die trying, because life is meant to be lived, and love is a part of living life. So, like, who wants to be by themselves? Who wants that? Most of the people that I know who are single, live alone by themselves, always have miserable days where they just need the comfort of somebody's companionship. Mm-hmm. And that's just basic stuff. We're not intended to be here alone. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so many of us. You know what I mean? So I think that it's important to just be who you are, be true to who you are, and be comfortable being who you are. Like, be unapologetic and intentional. You don't owe nobody nothing. My girlfriends kept saying, girl, you need to sit still for a minute. I just want you to take your time. I said, I like dating. You take your time and continue to be alone. Continue to be alone. I'm going on this date, okay?
There you
I'll
go.
call you when it's over.
Hey, to the Bible Museum. Go ahead.
Period.
Okay,
Then,
wait, can I just say this?
Real quick,
Remember
'cause
this.
I've got 10 seconds. Real quick. Real quick.
you're using your 10 seconds.
For the ladies out there, there are more good men out there than there are bad. Remember that as you pursue dating.
Okay. I like that, both ladies. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. That is the Daily Drum for this Friday, May 17th. For News Director Renee Nash, reporters Millette Green, Bramante Bryan, producer Candace Atkins Wilson, and engineer Bobby Adams, I'm Harold Fisher. Good night and have an absolutely